Reid Scott, this season on Veep, we've seen you sort of join back up with the Team Myers. What has that been like to be back in the fold?
Oh, it's been great. It's been great. Yeah, Dan was he was out there on his own, man. He was a rogue agent there for a while doing the lobbying thing. And I was really curious, honestly, how he was going to get sucked back into this whole sausage making factory. But yeah, he's back, and he's back doing what he does best, which is kind of screwing everything up.
Yes. And what do you think, like, having that time away from Selena's sort of team for close to a season, at least half a season, do you think he's like come back he's changed in any ways, he's learnt anything, or just completely as he was?
I mean, I think Dan is still Dan, he still operates the way he does. He's still Machiavellian, he's still cunning and conniving and all that. But I think he's got a new goal, which is a little different for me. We sort of saw that in the first episode of this season when he's talking to his buddy Greg Hart from CNN. He wants to be a talking head, on a broadcast news network. So I think he's back, and he's going to do all the things that he does and operate the way he operates. But now his goal, instead of being a power broker, which is kind of what he wanted to be in the past, I think now his goal is to land himself a nice, cushy job on network news.
Do you part of that was like him having spent some time working for the president, like he sort of got as high as he could as a sort of power broker and realized, not all it's cracked up to be?
Yeah, I think so. I think, also the fact that he was so easily dispatched from the team, I think really pissed him off. And I think he realizes like, hey man, like you can be top dog in this business, and it's still, someone's got to fall on their sword every so often. So I think, I think he's making the right move, trying to be, a broadcast journalist, but I don't know if it's going to work out.
Yeah, and this season has seen like a sort of like interesting sort of turn with Dan and Amy's relationship, like a little bit like more sort of flirty and stuff, and then you ended up sleeping with her sister.
Yeah, I know. when David, our new showrunner, David Mandel, when he told me that was part of the plan, I was like, oh my God, that's crazy. That is, I've seen her, this is like an unlikely hookup. But it works because it adds this new level of tension to the sort of mysterious past that Dan shares with Amy. And yeah, and honestly, it was just funny.
What was it like that scene in the Thanksgiving episode where Amy's folks just let you have it?
Oh, it was awesome. It was so great. I mean, yeah, there's just something so like classically comical about like ruining someone's holiday dinner. It's also it's so sad too that on Thanksgiving, like Dan has nowhere better to be than over at Amy's house with her family who all hate him. And he's perfectly, and he's flirting with the mom, and she's sort of getting in on it too. It was really good, solid, creepy fun.
Now, I guess like, you sort of enter new ground. Each season of Veep has a slightly different theme or some new sort of like thing happening. And this season has been the tide election, and actually having to deal with the fallout for the tide election. And I think like in some ways it was the first sort of it ended on. Like it usually ended with a big change.
Mm-hmm.
In like Selena becoming president or Selena deciding to run for president. This is the first time where really something we were quite uncertain about happened. What has that been like this season, sort of dealing with a tied sort of electoral college, something that hasn't really been explored much in any shows about presidents before?
Yeah, it was interesting. I mean, at the end of season 4, when Armando Iannucci told us that this was the route we were going to take, we were all kind of scratching our heads. I mean, we thought it was brilliant, but it was like, why is this even possible? So we had these fabulous consultants who were like looking into congressional law and really sort of like laying out the roadmap that you would have to follow if something like this occurred. So season 5 is essentially following that roadmap, and there's so many twists and turns, and there's so much, just like legal stuff to sort of wade through. But it was great because it gave us an opportunity to sort of play with that side of politics, just the minutia, and to take something that sounds as mundane as all these recounts and stuff like that, and to really amplify it and, just juice it for all the great, comedy that's in there. I've been really, intrigued by it. I think it's been really interesting and really fun.
And it's sort of interesting, like this year while Veep's happening, you've got the backdrop of a real life presidential race unfolding and real life sort of drama and maybe even real life comedy happening as your show's airing. What's that? Has that sort of changed the environment to which people are sort of like watching Veep and like responding to Veep?
Definitely. Yeah. I think, it's hard to turn away from an election cycle as crazy as the one that we're witnessing now, and then Veep being, this wonderful satirical political comedy. We get asked all the time, a couple things. One, how much are we borrowing from what's actually transpiring for the show, which is honestly very little. Like Veep is always sort of we've prided ourselves on being the show that doesn't do the ripped from the headlines thing, that we, come up with a crazy scenario and explore that, even though dozens of times, while we're shooting something that we think is just absolutely bizarre, it'll actually happen in real life politics. Another question that we get asked a lot is, if we tried as a show to do something as crazy as what's going on in the current election cycle, would HBO even let us shoot it? And the answer is probably no. I mean, you couldn't make up what's going on right now. If we tried to make a show that looked like what's going on in politics right now, I think HBO would have shut us down and be like, no one's going to buy that. And yet here we are. It's bizarre.
Yeah, it's sort of good that like where you're up to is slightly like you're a bit ahead in terms of like your post-election sort of a tiebreaker thing, and they're going through the prize at the moment. So it's not a like exact mirror, but you can see absurdity in both.
Absolutely. I mean, that's part of the fun of it, is that we've done a really great job so far of staying current, and then here we are, like you said, like a little bit ahead of the game. So and with all the contested conventions that could be coming up, the idea of watching ties and tie breaks in the current cycle this is a really wild year.
And I think like it's always good you're not like ripping from the headlines, because I think the first couple seasons of like The West Wing were really good in sort of staying away from that, and because of it, the show's had a better shelf life, because like it doesn't matter that it's not speaking to the particular year's news, but it can speak. So it's got a timeless quality to it.
Yeah, I think so too. We've tried to stay completely autonomous, and no character is necessarily based on anyone in particular in politics, because that way, we never even, I mean, you can infer, what you will, but we've never even explicitly said what party anyone belongs to, which I think, like you said, sort of gives the show a little extra longevity, because it lets the audience sort of fill in the blanks for themselves and just enjoy the scenarios for what they are.
And it's, different parties, policy positions change over, years, like the show will still be relevant. Like
absolutely. Yeah, that's the hope.
Yeah. You had a fun I think Thanksgiving episode with Tom, starting work for Tom Jane, and it turned out you've sort of become the bagman for Tom Jane.
Yeah, it was a really interesting turn of events. It's funny because one of the first scenes from the pilot even is Dan just ripping into Gary about not being able to work the coffee machine and carrying the stupid bag and all that. So season 5 to come, sort of come full circle. And I love the way that moment was sort of handled between Dan and Gary, just the two of them turning to face each other and just realizing, what's happened, and that Gary is just so satisfied with that. It was a really fun scene to shoot. It was really hard not to laugh, because the look on Tony's face is just priceless. And again, for Dan, it's kind of fitting. I mean, man, he's been a jack of all trades. He's been all over the place. So it's kind of appropriate that he's, at least for a little while, become a bagman.
Yeah. Did you request to be a bagman on the show because you were getting a bit jealous of all the Emmys Tony Hale was winning for being a bagman?
Exactly. Yeah, that's exactly what happened. Yeah, I saw it. I was like, hey man, I think this is the key to success is you got to be, a sycophantic bagman and be ready with the lip balm. So, let me take a swing.
Yeah. If you got nominated for the Emmy this year, maybe alongside Tony, what is there an episode you think? Would you submit an episode that we've already seen, or is there one you've got sort of in the pipeline coming up?
Man, that's a really good question. Every episode, honestly, in this season is so strong for everyone. There's an episode coming up, and I don't want to give too much away about it, but I think it's either 507 or 508 that just has some really great stuff going on. Man, I don't want to give it away, but it takes a turn that no one's going to see coming. And I'll just say that it's some great stuff between Dan and Jonah and Richard. Yeah, and when the audience sees what I'm talking about, like, oh man, they're in for a treat.
Okay, so it's a big like anything with Jonah is often fun.
Oh God, it's great. It's probably my favorite stuff, just because Tim Simons and I have gotten to be good friends too, and now with the addition of Sam Richardson, who plays Richard, the three of us just have this really fun, kind of like Three Stooges dynamic. It's become this little like mini show within our show. It's just, yeah, man, I'm really excited for the audience to see it because I think it's just different too. It's got a slightly different tone than years past of Veep, and it's just some of my favorite kind of comedy. It's really great.
Sam Richard, he has to be the best addition you've had to the cast since season. Oh yeah, there wasn't in the original cast. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, I mean, we've had every year we've had incredible additions. When we got Gary Cole and Kevin Dunn, we were thrilled because those guys are just such incredible actors, both comedic and dramatic, and they brought this whole new level to the show. But then, yeah, to get another punch in the, shot in the arm via Sam, he's so funny, and he's just such a great guy too. But the way he's approached his character with just this sweetest, most earnest, oblivion, it's just great. It's really great. And so the stuff that happens between Sam and Jonah, or sorry, Richard and Jonah, is just fantastic. And then when we get Dan in the mix too, and then when we get Uncle Jeff going on there too, it's really it gets good.
Yeah. Yeah. No, it's really fun. And we've got so you've got. Do you have another favorite moment from this season that we've already seen so far?
Yeah, I really loved oh man, where are we right now? We've been doing a lot of ADR, so I'm a little bit ahead. Yeah, we've just come up to 5. Well, I mean, first of all, we got to shoot in DC, which we haven't done in a while. Even when we were shooting back in Baltimore for the first 4 seasons, it's really tough to shoot in DC because security is so tight, so it's really hard to secure some locations. So this season, we got to actually go back at the end of the season for a couple of weeks and shoot a ton of DC stuff that would then get cut into the season across all 10 episodes. And even though Dan is just such a dick, shooting that scene in the season opener where he's sitting on the park bench eating the sandwich in view of the homeless guy, and then he just throws the sandwich out right in front of the guy. It's so mean, but that was a really fun scene to shoot because we're there, in the park in DC, and we had hundreds of fans around the perimeter of the park, and it was just really exciting to sort of, now that the show's really caught on and we won the Emmy last year, it's brought this new attention to the show, and to go and really get that authentic feel of being in DC, being outdoors, in public shooting. That was really, really fun.
And congratulations on the big Emmy win last year. What was that? Talk us through that night of being of winning the best comedy series Emmy.
It was crazy, man. It was, we believed in the show in the beginning, so I don't think anyone was, surprised that it could have been us. but while we were all sitting there, I was sitting with Tim Simon, the whole cast really together. But I mean, it was Tim Simons and Matt Walsh and myself sort of sitting in a group, and Sam's right behind me, and Kevin Dunn's behind me, and Gary Cole was right there. And when our writers won, well, first of all, when Tony won again, and then our writers won, and then Julia won, it started to become like this real possibility. You could sort of like see other casts and other people start to look over at us and say like, oh my God, I think this is your year. And then when Mel Brooks, I mean, oh my God, that was incredible to win the award and have it presented from Mel Brooks was just amazing. And he took us aside, we were up there sort of chatting with him on stage for a moment, and he was the nicest guy and so effusive. And so he's like, this is my favorite show. You guys have done such a great job. Man, it was just like, it was a career highlight. It was fantastic. And like, just to be up there representing our show in front of all these talented people, it was amazing. And it was a blur. Oh my God, it goes by so fast, but it was really incredible.
Yeah, like it was a really interesting night. And I remember I was talking to Armando afterwards, and like sort of how you guys won sort of half the awards, then sort of Transparent had sort of won the other half, like directing and lead actor for Jeffrey Tambor. So it's sort of like you wouldn't have been it could have gone either way of that when that final envelope was opening. And
it's true. Yeah.
So, yeah, that was like must have been quite like it wouldn't have been one of those ones where you're like, oh, we've definitely won this. There must have been some pretty No,
it didn't feel like a lock at all. But when Mel Brooks tore open that envelope and called us out, it was just, I mean, we just all turned to each other like, oh my God, it was incredible. And we're all huge fans of Transparent too. So yeah, it was anybody's game. It happened to go our way. That was pretty cool.
I think what sealed it for you was like, of those two shows, you're more the comedy show of the two. You're the funnier of the two. And when you look at the shows that have won this category, like Modern Family, 30 Rock, like you got to go back pretty far to find a show that's not just a pure comedy.
Yeah, and that's the thing about Veep is that, it really is, it's satirical comedy, I think, at its best. I mean, it's really poignant. It brings this little something extra to comedy where it's not, it's light, obviously, because it is a comedy, but the fact that it's, really dealing with these dark subject matters, and it's really taking aim at politics, which, until Veep is sort of, it's kind of hands off, unless you sort of referenced it with, kid gloves or reverence, or gave it this like wonderful gravitas that, that West Wing brought to it. Politics never really got skewered except for maybe on like the late night talk shows. So I think, the fact that Veep has consistently, because of our writers and our producers and Julia, I mean, it's really all them, but that it's consistently pushed the envelope and explored new territory within this, I think we finally, it was our turn.
Yeah. And it probably helped that you'd been nominated the past, 3 years before that, and you'd already won a few awards. It's sort of like you had sort of been probably building that momentum over the past 4 years to get to that point. What, like you said, it was a bit of a blur when they called out your name when you win. What is it like being up on the stage as the sort of Emmy winning team? It's almost like you've just won the like Super Bowl of television or something like that. You're sort of up there getting the trophies. Then I guess you go to the parties, and like just how do you celebrate winning an Emmy?
Oh man, it was, I mean, the rush of emotion is just incredible. And then, so you're up there on stage and you're staring out, for my part, at people that I've been fans of my entire life. I mean, like just like the sea of faces that's in the audience of incredible actors and directors and producers and writers. And the fact that you're up there, it's amazing. It's people always say in their speeches that it's humbling, but it really is. You get up there and you feel like very small. You're like, oh my God, I can't believe that, that we won when there's this kind of talent out there. And then they whisk you backstage, and You know, you're playing with the trophies and you're taking photos and you're doing interviews and then then you get to the party and you're riding this adrenaline high. And HBO, you know, for those people who might have heard, HBO puts on a pretty killer party, and it's the party that everybody wants to go to. And you know, we finally make it to the party, and you're just getting patted on the back everywhere you go. And obviously, you know, the champagne starts to flow, and it's so nice. And also, like, just for our cast and our writers and producers, like, we've become this really tight little family. And it was just, you know, it wasn't a wild night by any means. It was just there was a lot of hugging, you know, of everyone in the cast. This real wonderful sense of accomplishment, although that's not why any of us are really, you know, in this business in the first place. You don't do it for the awards. You do it because you love the show and you love the material and you love the day-to-day work of it. But the fact that, you know, you get honored in that way, man, it's a warm, fuzzy feeling for a couple of weeks. It's pretty great.
Who do you reckon was the best in the team at celebrating? Like, who was the most excited out of everyone?
Oh man, it might have been Sam. It might have been Sam, because, you know, it's his first year as a season regular, and I don't think he'd never been to the Emmys before. So it was really fun to sort of be there with him too, because you sort of get to relive it for yourself and see what it's like to go through it all for the first time all over again. And he's just such a fun guy, man. We had a blast that night. We all stayed out way too late and probably all paid for it the next day. But yeah, it was great. It was just, it was an unbelievable experience. You know, we hope to repeat it. You know, we'll see.
Yeah, I was there at the HBO party, and like the Veep tables were probably the most like hopping tables at the party.
Sorry, say it again. I lost you for a second.
I said I was there, and the Veep tables were probably the most like hopping tables at the HBO party.
Yeah, man, we were sort of like we were the bells of the ball. You know, like usually it's like, you know, like everyone wants to meet the Game of Thrones guys. Same here, you know, or like the True Detective guys. And this was the year that everybody wanted to hang out with the Veep cast. It was really cool.
Yeah, and I think it was like there was also like sort of like a real sweetness to it, in that a lot of the producers and writers were heading back to England. Like, you know, that they weren't staying on with the show this year, and like it was like a really sort of like quite a little bit emotional night for some of those guys, and probably for you guys too.
Yeah, you know, I think we were all surprised when we got the news that Arm and his guys weren't coming back. You know, I mean, this show would be, you know, non-existent if it weren't for Arm. I mean, he really is the mad scientist that came up with this whole thing. So it felt really fitting that we got to send him off, you know, with those really well-deserved awards. And it was bittersweet. It was a great way to just, you know, top off season 4. I mean, we worked really hard on that episode. It was a dynamic season, rather. Really dynamic season, a lot of really, you know, wonderful material to work with. And the fact that they all got honored, it was just incredible. And then Chris Addison, who has directed a ton of our episodes, for him to win the DGA award after that too, it's just like, man, it was like a Veep sweep. It was really, really cool.
Yeah, I didn't know he was necessarily coming back for this. I sort of lost track of who was staying, who was going and stuff. So it's really good that Chris has stayed on board.
Yeah, he has. He did 4 or 5 episodes for us. I mean, he's one of our favorites. So we hope to get him back some more.
Yeah. I guess like so you've now got the new crew in. You've got David Mandel. How's that transition been like for you?
Surprisingly, it's been pretty easy. I mean, David's a great guy, and he and Julia have this wonderful rapport from working together on Seinfeld and then Curbed and all that. And we met with David at Julia's house when he signed on. And we saw, I'll speak for myself, but I'm sure everyone else would say the same, that we just instantly bonded with David. And we knew him all by reputation, but it was just so clear that he got the show, he got the style of comedy, that he really cared about maintaining that tone, and that he didn't want to make some dramatic shift. Like he saw that the show was working, and we want to continue it rather than change it. And that's a huge task, to come in with a new showrunner and all new writers. And there were some growing pains, like there would naturally be, but I mean, they really stepped up, and in a remarkably short amount of time, got the scripts really tight, got the tone really on point. And the first few episodes, we were still sort of, shaking the rust off like you do at the beginning of the season anyway. And then by episode like 3 or 4, it was just so clear that this was humming, and that these guys were not only wonderful custodians of the show, but that they were bringing something really fresh and really new to the show and taking the show to a new level. And I think this is an incredible season. And I mean, those guys deserve a lot of credit. They worked incredibly hard, and I think they really delivered.
When I spoke with people last year, they said you guys were going to keep the improvisational process and refining of the script process that you've used in the past. Have you kept that, or have you changed that, mixed that up at all?
Oh no, it's all still there. I mean, we kind of joked that the show has really taken on a life of its own. That even though that we have like some new producers and showrunner and writers, Veep will not be changed. It sort of runs on its own schedule. It requires its own really unique process. So the improv is still there. We still rehearse a lot, and we improvise a lot in our rehearsals. And then the writers sort of will incorporate our improv into the next version of that script. And then we sort of even improvise more off of that on the day when we're actually shooting. So our process has really remained unchanged. And I think David and the other guys saw that that's what makes the show special, is the fact that there's this wonderful trust between the writers and the cast to empower us to take their words and play with it and actually, bring something to it, besides just, being a body hitting a mark, saying a line. It's this really unique collaborative effort. And that's what makes the show, it just gives it that feel that makes it stand apart from other shows, I think.
Has David brought anything fresh to the show?
Oh, 100%. I mean, it's just, there's a different sensibility between, British comedy and American comedy. And so there's a slight broadness that the American writers have brought to it, which is not to say that Veep has gotten really broad by any means. It's not like, slapstick comedy or anything like that. But I think there was, because we're dealing with a political subject matter, I think the Brits had an incredible ability to sort of view American politics from the outside and find out like what made it funny, what made them laugh about the subject matter from a completely removed standpoint. And I think now that we have a bunch of American writers, it's great because now we're sort of getting it from the inside. And there's subjects that the Americans will play around with that maybe the Brits wouldn't, because they weren't either familiar enough with the nuances of the American side of things or what have you. So it hasn't been this huge gear shift. It's just almost been like we're running at a slightly different speed, and like everything's colored a little bit differently, if that makes sense. And it was the perfect timing for it too. I mean, I think we were all wondering, it's like, man, we just, like we've been talking about, just won the Emmy. It's just the right time to sort of change up the team. And honestly, I got to say, I think it was the perfect time to change it up, because it just injected everybody with a new sort of energy for the show. And this has been a really great season, and just a lot of fun. Honestly, it's always been fun, but this season was particularly fun.
What's something fun that happened while shooting this season?
Oh my God. Man, I don't want to give anything away about the episodes to come, because it really, this season in particular sort of like goes like that. Like it just like right around like episode 5 just aired. It's actually the episode coming up, 506. The show takes this really great turn, and it gets just goofy at points, but I mean that in a really great way. But for me, some of the best thing were the guest stars. Honestly, to have Hugh Laurie back, to have Diedrich Bader, come back for us a little bit. This show has had and just been an embarrassment of riches of like the revolving door of amazing guest stars that have come through the show. And there's some surprises coming. So like I said, I don't want to sort of tip that, but you know, as a young actor to get to work with so many, you know, incredible actors, you know, of television and screen and stage, as you know, from America and, you know, London, and it's been a real treat. It's been a real treat. I'm just sort of counting my lucky stars all the time that I got to work with these guys.
And what's it been like? You mentioned earlier moving to LA this season to shoot.
That's been great. That's been great. I gotta say, you know, we shot in Baltimore for the first 4 seasons, and it's hard to be gone. You know, it's hard to live in a hotel for 5 months. You know, we all have families, so it was nice to sort of be home. You know, my wife and I had a baby 14 months ago, so it was nice to be here while, you know, and come home and, you know, be able to tuck them in at night and do bath time and all that kind of fun stuff. And it was also just fun to shoot in LA. We shoot at Paramount Studios, which, you know, we live like down the street, so that was, you know, obviously really easy. But I love that, you know, those stages in that lot. I sort of came up on that lot, so most of my early gigs were all on the Paramount lot. So I have this wonderful, you know, it was very nostalgic to sort of be back home. And as you can sort of see, like the storyline lends itself that you can kind of be anywhere. You know, a lot of it's taking place in Nevada, and the show moves to other states, you know, during the recount process. So it was fitting that we weren't shooting, you know, back in Baltimore, because, you know, you could really shoot it anywhere, and, you know, nothing like shooting at home.
Yeah, Matt can do more at the UCB. He's not over there.
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's really good. Well, what do you think it would mean for you guys to win the Best Comedy Series Emmy this year? Like, repeat it.
I mean, that's always huge. You know, to see if you can replicate it, and, you know, and like you said, repeat. That would be amazing. That would be amazing. It would also mean something really special to our new writers, you know, and to David, the fact that they could sort of take the helm when the show was really at its peak and continue that. I mean, you can't really say enough about that. If they pull that off, that is huge and would certainly be unprecedented. I don't think that's ever happened, that a new showrunner's come in and you've not only maintained that level of quality, but even heightened it. And to go on to win again, that would be huge. It would be a huge boon for the show. But we're so proud of these guys too, man. I mean, personally, I think they deserve it. I think when the audience and the Emmy voters see how this season turns out, it's incredible what these guys did.
Yeah, if you guys win again, they go, "Oh, phew, we didn't ruin it."
Yeah, exactly.
We kept it going. That's great. No, so it would be good. I think, like, I do think it's really great that, though, you guys won your first one when and stuff was still in the team.
Yeah, it was the right time. It felt really good.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, like, Reid, what was it like for Tony to win his second one for the show?
Oh my God. Like Tony is just, first of all, he's the happiest guy on the face of the planet anyway. But to see Tony Hale, you know, just like beaming like that, we're so proud of him. I mean, and he deserves it too. I mean, what he's done with this character is just, it's unlike any other character on television. And he's also been doing that for all the characters he's played in everything, you know, since Arrested Development on through. So we're thrilled for him, man. He's the best. You know, everyone loves to have a scene with Tony because, well, for 2 reasons. One, he's just such a great actor. He's so fun to do a scene with. But 2, we love to pick on Tony and try to get him to laugh because, man, when he breaks in the middle of a scene, it's just hilarious. And then it's like a giggle waterfall. Like everyone starts laughing, the crew starts laughing. So he's he's great. We love Tony.
With you sort of becoming the bagman recently, did he give you any tips?
There was a very long discussion about which is the proper shoulder to carry the bag on. Like if you're right-handed, you put it on your left shoulder so you can reach across the body. Do you carry it on your right so you can dig in this way? And then what pockets do you keep all the accoutrement in? And he takes it very seriously. He knows his bag very well.
Yeah. Oh, that's very good. Oh, well, Reid, it's been so great chatting with you again.
Thanks, man.
Like, congrats on all the Emmy success. All the best moving forward. Hopefully this year we'll see a few more of the supporting crew get into that category, that there can be sort of a bit of a wave of momentum. But all the best, Reid, and thanks so much.
Thanks, buddy.